This conference will now be recorded.
All right. Town of Cottage Grove Plan Commission will hold a public meeting on Wednesday, January 26, 2022 at 7 p.m. at the Town Hall at 4058 County Road N. You can also join the meeting by GoToMeeting. We have, the meeting was posted at the Town Hall and on the website. We do have a quorum present. I'll call the meeting to order. And you have minutes of the December 22nd meeting.
I'll move approval as presented.
Motion by Anders, second by Mule to approve the minutes as presented. Any discussion?
I texted Troy.
Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Next item is public concerns, public's opportunity to speak to the Plan Commission about any subject that is not a specific agenda item. We have Robert on.
Hello, it's Robert Williamson.
Hi there.
Yeah. Is it okay if I speak?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, this is Robert Williamson. Thanks for letting me speak to you guys. I'm representing the family of the Glarowitz Trust. We have 18 acres of land for sale at the corner of Gala Way and Vilas Hope Road. We've had the property for sale for over 2 years and been through a number of different issues and ordinances and things or whatever, and I've learned a lot. The property is adjacent to Gala Heights. Actually, my father-in-law, Vince Glarowitz, developed Gala Heights back in the 1960s. And there's along Gala Road, there's at least 16 houses there right now. The township, what I'm talking about is what you can see on the screen here. We're looking at lot 3. It's 18 acres. If you look at the southern section of it, underneath like L4, there are 8 homes there. And so we kind of circle those 8 homes and go in front. And what we're wondering is, right now the township has approved a one-on-one transfer of development rights that we'd be able to get to be able to sell to someone. We've had a number of people look at the property, and everybody, that's the first thing they ask is it buildable? 2 years ago, it was not. You had to have the 1 to 8 and be a receiving area, and we didn't have that. Since then, we do have the 1 to 1 ability, but in thinking about this and being right next to Gala Heights, which is already a neighborhood development area, we're right there. We basically developed the area. We were hoping we could get our land approved or associated with the neighborhood development. I contacted a number of sellers of TDRs, and they're asking for a one-on-one, 60,000, 85,000, 100,000 for just a one-on-one. And I guess if we could be a receiving area, which seems to make a lot of sense here, it would be somewhat infill of the property, going just along Gala Way. We're not looking at anything else. Just along Gala Way, adding homes from like the line of, L17 or L8, going up north, that area there, which is about 8 acres probably. We do have someone that is interested in basically drawing a line at L17 and purchasing the lower portion, which is about roughly 10 acres. So we do have somebody interested in that. I do have some people that are interested above that. So we're really looking somewhat for 2 building sites, but possibly the north area could be 3 or 4. I don't know. Again, it's depending on who might want to buy the property from us, if they would want more houses there. So what I'm thinking is, if we were a receiving area, why couldn't we develop 2 or 3, 4 lots there and be in a receiving area and be able to purchase a 1-to-8 rather than a 1-to-1. It seems like the farmers, I understand the process of all this, of them being able to sell the property or have to put their property into a trust or whatever and not be able to build. But I think the one thing that it's giving them an advantage of, the one thing they're doing is they're looking at the property that would never be buildable anyway. And they're getting the benefit of receiving the $100,000 or whatever. That land isn't taxed at that amount. So why is it that valuable? So I guess I'm just wondering if what we need to do to be able to be considered to get into the neighborhood development area.
Well,
Questions?
if you go into the neighborhood development area, we're going to look for all 18 acres to be developed.
Why?
That's what neighborhood development is.
Well, it's somewhat of an infill there.
So develop the whole 18 acres. Otherwise, you're in neighborhood development, you're limited to a 1 acre lot size
Okay.
for your home.
That means you can only purchase 1 acre?
You can only have 1 acre with a residential house.
Right. So if someone could buy 5 acres and have 1 acre of it be for the house and the other 4 similar to what I know, talking about the
Why would we put that
annexation.
neighborhood development then?
What?
Why would we put it in neighborhood development to have 4 acres not used? That's not the purpose of neighborhood development.
What is the purpose of it?
To use that acreage as a subdivision. You
Okay,
might-
it already is. The subdivision is basically there.
Acres is not.
Well, it's right next to it.
If
Isn't it?
put it into neighborhood development, we're going to want all 18 acres developed.
Or as much as we can.
As much as you can, and that's probably not all it could be.
Well, okay, as much as you can. I mean, we know that we can't develop it behind, Madison is not going to let us develop it behind those 8 houses. So basically, it would just be from like L8 up north of that. That's about 8 acres. I mean, we could put 8 lots in there and sell to people too. And they build, you know what I mean? We could put 8 lots in there then. So I mean, that is a possibility. And it's infilling from the southern part up to Violet Hope Road. I mean, that's not what we're looking to do, but we could do that. Or, you know, there may be a developer that would want to buy it and be able to do that because the road is already there. We would not have to put any other roads or anything in. It would be consistent with what's already there. So we can divide that off and not have it be the 18 acres. That's fine if that's how we need to do it. We're trying to do it within the plans, within the whatever needs to be done. That's part of why I'm doing this, is to find out how we can do it and to have help in finding out how we can do it so we can do it right. I don't know all these answers. That's why I'm coming and asking.
Right.
And, you know, I mean, I've been working on this for over 2 years, a number of different things, and I'm learning a lot, but I don't know a lot. And, you know, I mean, it's like, basically it's stopping us from selling our land if we have to do that.
Have you talked to the city of Madison? Is it anything that they would approve? They're
City
the
of
big-
Madison has final approval on stuff and they won't tell you if they're going to or not. I've talked with them, yes. I've talked with Tim Parks a number of times.
Uh-huh.
Specifically, this of adding 8, no, I have not, because if you're not gonna approve it, why would I call him?
It doesn't do us any good to approve it and then tell you no then.
What was that?
It doesn't do us any good for us to approve it. And then when you get to Madison, they say, no. You spent all this time and money getting to that point.
Okay, well, if I ask Madison, are they going to tell me that we can do it? Can you say that they're gonna tell me that we can and we should go ahead?
they would need to give you direction one way or the other that it's something that they would approve, or if they would definitely say, no, we wouldn't approve that.
But I
Okay.
believe that
But we're coming up to the point of February 15th to March 15th when we have the limited time to be able to do this. I don't know if I'd get the answer back from them. I've requested, talked to Tim Parks 3 different times, and it takes him about 4 weeks, 5 weeks sometimes to get back to me on things.
Yeah,
So, you know, again, I'm running into, we have tried to sell, I think most of you are probably familiar with these 8 lots down here below line L4. That went to Madison. Everything has been approved from Dane County. Those lots are bigger than they used to be. They used to be about 0.46 acres. Now they're almost 0.8. That is still going through Madison. It took us, there's 7 neighbors that are buying land there. They all had to get signature from their own signature. Then it had to go to their mortgage holders. One of the people, their mortgage was sold. It went to what was it? A bank in Pennsylvania.
yeah,
And it took forever to get the information back from them. So Madison has that information. This started November 1st of 2020, and we're still not resolved on that. And
Yeah.
actually this 18-acre lot is not official yet either. That is in the process. They need to finish this one before our surveyor will push this into Madison, but everything else is approved. So, you know, it's just running into things and running into slow process. The reason this 18-acre parcel is there is we had somebody that was willing to buy it without building rights. We went ahead, surveyed it off, had it ready. They got a job offer and moved. You know, what are you going to do? So that's why this 18 acres is here. I know one time when there is a possibility of, if you look at the property line there, the L18 and L20, that little strip there, it's possible we can sell that to the landowner in like just to the left of that. And also from L15 straight up, he is willing to possibly buy about an acre there and an acre there, that it would split this up a little bit.
mm-hmm,
And that should be able to happen if we want to do that.
Yeah.
Someone wanted to buy this, the southern 10 acres, I said, they wanted to build a house like basically where lot 3, where that circle is. And that's something that I don't think Madison's going to allow that. That would be putting it behind these houses. And so they are possibly interested in coming up and building like where 6, 7 there is. Yeah, right there. So they would buy that whole parcel, which would be about 10 acres probably. But so that's one area. Then it goes up. I mean, so that would be one, and I guess that's where we could split it off and sell that piece separate. And no, that doesn't have to be in a neighborhood development area, although it's right next to it. And then put these other 7 lots in those acres there, I guess. I mean, we'd be willing to find out. I mean, I guess it might make it easier to sell the property to some developer that would want to come in and be able to sell these lots for a lot less than $100 and whatever $1,000 they're getting for a third of an acre in different places. And then, you know, there's nothing to say that, yeah, we can have 8 lots there, but does that mean somebody can't buy 3 of them? I don't know. I mean, how would you control that? I shouldn't say that because that's going to be an out for saying, no, don't do it. But you know what I mean? People want a little bit more land. And that's the one thing that I saw that Madison was going to do in this annexation thing, where you could have 5 acres. You could have 5 acres and build two homes on it. Well, that's not using all the land. I guess
not what it said.
it's not in a neighborhood development then, but I guess the reason I wanted to be in a neighborhood development is, or let's do this, we just wanted to be a receiving area where we don't have to purchase 2 transfer of development rights when you can buy 1 on 8, and you know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. It's like they're not discounting it because you're only buying 1-to-1. So I mean, it's totally giving an advantage to someone that is going to build 8. We're not a developer. We're not trying to be a developer. We just want to sell the property. And it's totally limiting us to what we can do then.
You're also not going to be able to just keep dividing off one lot, one lot, one lot. You can only do CSMs on the same property, so many lots in 5 years. I know it's
5 CSMs, wasn't it?
Yeah, and you've already done one here with the one that's in progress. And then if you do another one to give land, sell land to the owner of that lot 1, I mean,
That's 2.
you can't just keep doing CSMs. It's probably gonna at some point have to be divided, subdivided.
Mark, do you have any comments?
I think there is, 2 possible futures, and you've hit on them. One of them is that, I guess there's 3. One of them, the first one is that the land just stay as it is without any development rights and get sold around and pieced off to abutting owners and others who are willing to take it as is. The other option we did create in the town plan last year or 2 years ago, I can't remember, it all blurs together, to enable rights to move, which before it hasn't happened. And, that's the option that would allow the purchase or transfer of rights from another piece of land to here. And then the third, option is, of course, to designate it for it as a neighborhood development area, like the lands, the other lands along Galloway are designated. And I certainly agree with Chris and others, is that if we're going to do that, the intent for that area is to develop relatively densely for a rural area and not, sort of waste that land on large lot rural housing. So, I think if that's the direction, I think it does make sense to actually lay out a concept plan for how that would look along Galloway. Shouldn't be terribly hard, and share that with the city and be able to talk about that and potentially designate a small area, 8 to 10 acres to accommodate lots between or along the east side of Galloway. The final thing I'll mention is that we're kind of in a funky period here. We didn't intend, I don't think, to have a February 15th to March 15th plan amendment timeframe this year, because we are in the midst of a larger update to the comprehensive plan. That's not to say that you guys, as the Planning Commission, can't consider, I guess, a last minute change to the plan before we take it through the adoption process. As you know, we were kind of waiting for the boundary agreement discussions to settle a little bit before beginning the plan update process, the formal process to have you recommend and the board approve the new plan. So I think we're still in that period, and it's really up to you, I think, as a commission to decide whether as a policy you'd like to incentivize, subdivision here through designating it for neighborhood development.
Theoretically, if using see where it's the L7 and L8 corner is there, going to the right as we're looking at the map to where the circle is. Yep. If they were to go ahead and determine that to be the residential or the infill area for the, to create the neighborhood development, that would be easier to create the lots and lay them out lots out there. And at the same time, he could pursue the landowner of lot 1 to take that little peninsula, that little stick of land, that flagpole, to get it all done. So it's all done, you know, at one time on the map. And as Mark says, we've seen development layouts and a lot stranger layouts of land. So, you know, it should be pretty easy to figure out lots and draw some lines and then submit that to the city of Madison, as Mark said, as a potential concept for the development. And that would give us something to actually discuss and look at, as opposed to trying to, you know, whether or not you're thinking the same thing that I'm thinking, or Mark is, or Dave is, you know, I mean, this way we got lines.
Okay, no, I understand that. I do. I mean, that's what I'm looking for here, is to know what direction to go. I guess one question is, if we were to sell, if everything stays the way it is, we divide at L17 and someone purchases the lower 10 acres and someone purchases the northern 8 acres, would you approve building sites on each of those? And if you do, that's leaving a bigger space than if we had 3 or 4 houses built there. So on one hand, you need the total infill, and on one hand, you don't. Is that, you follow what I'm saying? Then
Right.
you'd have
But they're not.
17 down south, you'd have one landowner with one house and have about 10 acres. And above that, you'd have about 8 acres with one home on it, and that whole front area would be left alone. And you
No.
wouldn't, what was that?
Subdivision on the upper half from L8 north, that would be, I don't know, 8 homes, 9 homes?
Right. Right, if you would approve it to be, yes, that's what I'm saying. That would be, and that's where I said too, we would do that. It'd be 7 homes up there and probably 1 from the L17 line down, because they would buy that whole lot. We need to sell that lot 3, the southern part of it behind those houses. I mean, otherwise we're gonna be that's locked in. So, I mean, in order to sell anything, we need to sell that. Because that's not desirable for building. We do have somebody that is willing to buy it all and build a house around where 6-7 there is, 6-7 underneath the L17. So they would be willing, and that where the cursor there is, that's a 66-foot
Driveway.
area for a driveway. I mean, that's already there. If you go down to the bottom, there you go. There's going to be space there to put a driveway in if they want to. But I don't think Madison or anybody is going to let us build houses behind there on L3. I mean, I don't think that's ever going to happen. I don't think. So we need to sell that whole 10 acres as a one piece. That's why when you say develop the whole 18 acres, I mean, I think that's impossible. But yes, we could put those 8 in that, we could draw lines and do that very easily, and I'm willing to do that and to go to Madison and ask them. I will do that.
One thing to remember, about quarter of a mile to the north of your property, we went through this with Paulson. And
Yeah, there's a neighborhood. That's where there's a neighborhood development area, but there's nothing there, is there?
No, I think Madison turned them down.
turned it down, so we took it out of neighborhood development.
Okay, it's still on the map though, right?
Yeah, but the new one that'll get adopted will be gone.
Okay, but I saw it up there and I'm like, what is that? I don't know what's there. And no, I mean, I'm not trying to do this. I'm trying to do it somewhat as infill too, you know, and if you look on the left hand, the western side of Galaway, I mean, there are houses, but they are sporadic. They're not on 1 acre lots. I think they're smaller, and they have property over there that we don't own that, but I mean, it's not filled out there. Has everybody that purchased a 1 on 8 used all 8 all the time?
Close.
We had one case where he only built 15 homes. He's left with one.
Okay. But I mean, part of it is the cost of it. It's like, if we could build 2 homes there and have to pay, I mean, I don't know, it's somebody that I talked to, they want $100,000 for it. It was somebody that's on here all the time, Vinny I talked with. They want $100,000. It's like, well, I mean, that's more than, it's just ridiculous. But if you could get 8 lots, well, that makes some sense.
Well, that's what the program is designed to do.
Yeah,
And what is it to do? It's to basically let the landowner get some money for.
he would have got the $100,000 if he would have sold a 2-acre lot on his farm. We didn't want him to split up the farm and waste 2 acres and build a home out in the middle of a field. So he's incentivized to sell that development right to you to build 8.
In a spot that's more appropriate for housing.
Right.
Okay, so why is it then when these people that have the building rights look for specific places on their property that probably is already a wet area, wetland or wet area like that? I mean, you look at it and say, okay, here are 35 acres that could be buildable. Are they taxed on it then as the value that land is, that 2 acres is worth $100,000? They got
They're taxed on the
$100,000
use
for
of
it.
the land.
What was that?
They're taxed on the use of the land.
And they used it to get $100,000 to sell it to somebody. So, I mean, I understand, but you think a little bit further down the line that yes, that's true, the use of the land, but they used it to get $100,000.
And they gave up their building right.
That's right. So then that makes that land worth $100,000 in my book.
No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
Well, it does. I mean,
It's worth $100,000.
what was that?
The building right may be worth $100,000. The land isn't.
Okay, but anyway, what I'm saying is it puts us in a bind that I don't think was thought out when all this went together either. That smaller landowners aren't able to sell their land. I mean, our land then is basically, we want it to be able to sell houses. That's the use that we want of our land, but we can't do it.
Then you need to come up with a concept plan as to how you would build 8 or 16 homes on that land to show Madison and us as to how it would be developed.
Okay, it's basically, I'm gonna just take 8 acres there and split it off, eight lines going east and west. That's what, I mean, that's what the concept's gonna be. I don't know how else to do it. And that's what I'll ask. So,
But then you need to look at our subdivision ordinance as to what that's going to entail. Because there's going to be money expended for stormwater and roads. If they're so-called.
the road is there.
If you develop the south end, you will have to put a road in between your two 66-foot easements.
Where's that?
I don't think he's talking about developing that, but
What's that?
I don't think he was talking about developing that, but.
Everything's too
Yeah,
low.
I think that's sitting on the problem, Rob. No one quite can put their finger on what you're proposing because it's hard to follow words. It's a lot easier to follow lines on maps when they're drawn out. So I think what everyone's asking you to do is to, probably for the entire 18 acres, is to indicate the intents for every square inch, but also to do so with recognition that some of that land would have to be set aside for stormwater. And that if you're putting lots deeper, meaning further to the east of Galloway, you might need another second road to get back to that eastern deeper area. But we can keep talking in circles, but I think you just need to start putting lines on a map and
Okay.
showing everyone. Yeah.
That's simple. Like I said, go down a quarter of an inch. I mean, I'm just saying, and draw a line. Yeah, they're going to go deeper because they're going to be 1 acre east to
Robert, I
west.
think you just need to draw it.
I will, but I don't know why. Why would you put where would you put a road in the back when you have access? You have access to Gala Way already. There is no need. We're not building garages behind the houses to put another road back behind them. No one would ever put a road back there. Not down here in L3. We're not talking about that. I'm talking about above. I mean, why would you put a road in there?
That's what you're trying to say.
Yeah, I don't want to keep going in circles either and waste anybody's time. When should I do this? What should I do this? Should I get this ready and send it to you for February 15th? Or tell me what I need to do? That's what I'm looking for is guidance. Tell me what I need to do to get this going. And I'll go to Madison and ask them and come back to you then.
Yep.
But we have to wait until next year?
Possibly.
Depends upon how quickly everybody approves everything.
Yeah.
Well, again, I mean, Madison is, okay, I guess. Okay.
Obstacle's gonna be Madison.
Madison is.
Can anybody give me any other guidance what I should do? I'll go ahead and talk to Madison, I guess.
Yeah,
Is that
Parks is the person you have to deal with there.
What was that?
Parks is the one that you have to deal there with, and I'm sorry, but I don't have any control over him.
No, no one does. And that's it. Like I've been told from the beginning that everything can get approved and it gets to Madison and they can say no.
Yeah,
So if they say yes, it's going to be a yes everywhere else?
I would say you have far better possibilities.
Yeah,
No,
okay.
that
All
we're
right,
going to prove it that other people would then too.
Thank you all for your time. I appreciate you listening to me and I know what to do now better. So that's
Okay.
how I'll proceed. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Very good. Okay, still under public concerns, I have a public concern. I'd like to show you a map that,
Is that Karen person? Is that Karen person?
his sister-in-law.
Oh, is that who that is? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Being on CARPC, this is the preliminary map that Madison sent to them for urban service area expansion. And just so you see where they're going to take the county shop and some land on either side of 12 and 18, going back to Femrite, but they're not going to touch the land where the solar farm is going. And so if it gets put into urban service area, next thing will be annexation.
Of course. Just like they threatened to do.
Just FYI.
So it's the dotted lines
Yeah, the yellow or the red dotted line.
inside the yellow.
And the yellow is already in the city of Madison that had been Blooming Grove.
Oh, okay.
Give me that, Chris.
The gray is
Okay, so it's the county
township.
garage and then
Give me your map.
that land where that pond
Here,
is.
David.
Where,
Cohorts.
yeah, the mid-states was gonna be.
Oh, yeah, they're taking that on the south side of
That's
12.
that thing. And
Yeah.
This is the power, the parts thing.
That's where the right and the corners off.
So just so you know what might be coming down the road.
So why would they want to be in the city of Madison?
I've heard that the county shop wants more water. I don't know what for.
Washing.
I don't know.
Cleaning bodies.
I don't know if it's that or if it's something to do with, in the winter, the water that they need to mix with their
Brian?
brine. what it is, but to get urban service area, Madison will make them annex. So that was all that I had. So we'll move on to discuss, consider recommendations regarding revisions to the Town of Cottage Grove, Chapter 15, Land Division and Planning Code. Interesting reading.
GS.
Right?
I'm at your disposal as to how you'd like to proceed. I could, hit the highlights. We can walk through it page by page. Most of the changes are early, but there are changes throughout the document that are being suggested.
I'm a page by page person. That's where I made my notes.
Sounds good. So just generally speaking, as you may be aware, this is sort of the ordinance that guides land development in the town, with recognition that you are under county zoning. So it covers the comprehensive plan and what it means. It covers certainly land divisions and subdivisions, but it also covers, to an extent, the town's role in the county zoning process. And so the changes were initially prompted by the interest in creating a different class of neighborhood streets, as the commission's been discussing for several months now, to accommodate pedestrians along main streets and subdivisions. But it includes more than that, certainly, if you feel appropriate to recommend so. So I see you're on page 4, which are, this is the start of the proposed changes. So, just to ground you all, everything you see in red on the screen is some sort of proposed change. Everything you see in black and white is just the way the ordinance reads right now. And the first set of changes just deals with Dane County zoning regs and how the town is involved in the county zoning process, with my attempt to kind of clean that up a little bit. And that extends into page 5 as well. There's a class of changes related to kind of roles and responsibility of the town plan commission and the town board. The ordinance is currently a little schizophrenic as to who can waive or vary standards within the subdivision ordinance. Here it says the town board does it. Later on, the ordinance currently says the plan commission can do it. It's typical in a subdivision ordinance to only allow the town board to vary standards within an ordinance. And so this looks like a lot of new language. It's actually language that's pulled up from later in the ordinance, with the responsibility assigned to the plan commission in the current version of the ordinance, proposed to be reassigned to the town board with these changes. I can keep plowing forward. Not too many changes. On 6, little editorial comments throughout. The next kind of batch of major changes occur on page 6 as proposed, or page 8, I'm sorry, page 8. There is, in the current land division ordinance and planning code here, there are overlapping and sometimes out of date and contradictory provisions related to how the comp plan changes compared to what we have written within the comprehensive plan itself. And my suggestion is to pull that language out of here and instead lean on the comprehensive plan document that we've been working on and amending and updating for those procedures. So that's why you see all the language crossed out on the bottom of page 8 and extending onto the top of page 9.
Yep.
There's a continuation of the discussion of the comprehensive plan onto page 9. Similar type of stuff. I'm trying to really simplify it, make sure that we acknowledge the comprehensive plan and its purpose, but not repeat information that's out of date and redundant to what's in the comp plan itself.
Yeah.
Page 10, the bottom of page 10 starts with a number of definitions that are in the current land division and planning code. There are some minor adjustments. This is number 9 is the first mention of, one of the major kind of goals here. The current subdivision ordinance has a process, procedure, and set of requirements for something called a comprehensive development plan for a future subdivision. And then it also has those same kind of requirements for something called a concept plan. To me, it seemed confusing or redundant or both. My suggestion is to consolidate that preliminary process or early process for subdivision development under one umbrella, the comprehensive development plan umbrella. And this is just the first little piece that defines what that is. The standards are going to come later in the ordinance for what exactly, how this fits into the overall planning process and what exactly you need to submit to have a complete comprehensive development plan. There's some other kind of minor changes dealing with changes in reality and ETJ and things like that. I often, when I do this, I search for these defined terms to see if they're actually in the ordinance. And if you go to the next page, I found one, planned commercial site doesn't appear anywhere in the subdivision ordinance. So what would be the purpose of defining a term that's not used? The next set of definitions that, I'm sorry.
Mark, on page 11 at the top, number 5 is the checklist. Are we going to provide that as an exhibit, or is it going to be included somewhere?
My suggestion is to not have it be part of the ordinance.
Okay.
Because then, and the checklists that I work on often have like hyperlinks to point people to resources and how they kind of fill out the checklist. That's hard to do in an ordinance. Things change. In general, if it's a separate document that's not part of the ordinance, it could be adjusted by, action of the plan commission, or the town clerk finds a typo, she can clean it up. So my suggestion is that it not be part of the ordinance.
Okay.
The bottom of page 12, I was getting to sort of the definition of streets. My perception of the town's land division ordinance is similar to others, is that it has some very generic definitions of like arterial streets and collector streets that don't have, it's only serve to confuse and don't have a real relationship to actual streets in the town. They're just sort of generic lists. So what I did with this proposal is leaned on resources that we have from the Greater Madison Metropolitan Planning Organization. They have, in conjunction with the DOT, classified actual roads in the town as principal arterials, as minor arterials, and as collector streets. So what I did, or what I'm proposing to do here through this, is just list those streets that are actually those things, rather than leave people guessing as to what is what. And then defining and actually cleaning up a new class of streets called connector streets or neighborhood connector streets. And those would be the ones that serve that funneling function within neighborhoods, and that the town may, in new development situations, may want to see, wider right of way and, paved shoulders. And, we'll talk about those standards later. But this is the class of street that we'd be creating. And I listened to you over the last few months, and the list I put on here isn't from anyone else, but me listening to you in terms of existing streets that kind of fill that role within the town. So it's kind of like every other main street that's not classified by the MTO as an arterial or collector street.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's that provision, any other roads or highways that the town board may designate. So that the idea is that you get a new subdivision proposal and you say, oh, well, X street in your subdivision is a neighborhood connector. It's funneling street. So we're going to ask you to make that one a little wider.
Yep.
So that was a big effort here, is to just kind of classify and clean up the classifications of different streets in the town. You'll see some places I just go with repealed as opposed to removing numbers. I just want to let you know why I'm doing that. If you would, for example, if you go to 32, Kim, a little bit further down. No, not page 32, number 32 on page 14.
Skip ahead.
Yeah, you just see it reads repealed rather than me crossing out 32. The idea there is that, there's references to different sections of the code, and if you start to pull out full sections, you got to make sure you're properly cleaning up all those references. It can be like pulling a thread on a sweater. So I go ahead.
Question for you, at the top of page 14, which is local streets.
Yeah.
Would that force us in any old subdivision to correct those errors where they don't connect that they should have?
No,
Okay.
it would not. This ordinance, generally applies only to new development when it's happening, not retroactively to old development.
Okay.
And even that definition doesn't require all local streets to connect. It just says that just because it's a local street doesn't mean it won't connect. It could very well connect.
Okay.
The next place I'll hover just briefly is on page 15. This is something you can take it or leave it, but in contract for improvements, these are development agreements by another name. I've worked with the town of Springfield and others to come up with a laundry list of items that ought to be included in a development agreement. I've transcribed that laundry list here. And the reason I'm going to play Bill Cole here for a second. The reason is that it's important that when you're negotiating a development agreement to have a foundation in the ordinance to say we want this provision in the development agreement, rather than rely on a wish that they'll agree to something. So this attempts to be more specific as to the category of things that you can lawfully include in a development agreement.
Okay.
I'll move forward pretty quickly through 17. 18, you recall we dealt with a lot of the park stuff within the past year and a half, park fees. So I'm not proposing to touch that. That gets us through page 19 and into page 20. One of the other objectives here on the bottom, starting on the bottom of page 20, is to make things clearer that there's a unified form for when you want to rezone land, get a conditional use permit, get a subdivision plat, get a CSM. It's called a petition for land use change. If you agree with this approach or these changes, one of the next steps would be to kind of clean up that common petition.
Yes.
But right now, the land division ordinance, what we're looking at right now, is a little bit hazy on what you need to submit when. But this would make it, this change and other changes later would make it clearer that there's this unified form. You might need to check box A, B, and D for one type of approval and box C and F for a different type, but it's all on one form.
Yeah, I made a note that we really need to do that right away.
Yeah. So I think that would be, yeah, that is useful and helpful for people on the other end. The next set of changes is again a set of deletions, and they appear in section, let's see here, petition procedures for change. Oh, appeals, there it is. So this section sort of confused me a little bit. As you know, the Plan Commission in just about everything is a recommender. It recommends to the town board to take certain actions, and then the town board, usually listens to the Plan Commission, then takes its recommendation. This section confused me in that it, as currently written, implies that the Plan Commission has the power to reject a preliminary plat, to reject a final plat, and other things, which isn't consistent with how the rest of the ordinance reads. And in fact, isn't consistent with statute in certain cases. So this would remove that section on appeals. So you're not really appealing any decision of the Plan Commission because the Plan Commission is only a recommending body anyway. And so, the later changes to the code or later sections of the code describe all those things that the commission recommends.
Mark, on the change of land use form at the top of 21 where you're talking about that, do we need to put in there that it has to be signed by the landowner?
It's a good idea. No, I think that's good, and I can add that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's usually not cool to subdivide someone else's property, so. All right. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, just got a question on the appeals here a little bit. Just not that we've had many or any to speak of, just going forward here. Who would the aggrieved person appeal to, the board or the commission?
Well, the ordinance is confusing to me now, but if the Plan Commission is just a record, let's say you as a Plan Commission recommend something to the board and the applicant doesn't like what you recommended, they would just go to the board meeting and say, I don't like condition 7 that the Plan Commission is recommending, I want you to remove it. And then the town board could decide whether to do that or not. It's not really an appeal because you guys have not, as a Plan Commission, didn't really make a decision. You just made a recommendation.
Okay, yes, okay, I understand that. But, with some of these, meetings that we sit through, for some of the developments and stuff, take the one that's out on Kennedy Hills right now. I mean, how many hours do you and us and the planner, or the engineer have for all that? And then somebody doesn't like something and goes to the town board, and, the town board, short of Chris and I, is probably going, oh, I don't know, because in fact, they don't have the benefit of all these meetings and stuff. Do you actually consider a joint meeting between the Plan Commission and the town board in order to be able for the town board to really find out what the heck was going on? I mean, I don't mean to overcomplicate something, but some of this stuff could actually be fairly complicated.
Well, certainly joint meetings of the board and Plan Commission are possible, and I know they're held from time to time. and you're able to do that. But and the plan, it's a little confusing, or not confusing. It's a little, you don't have too much choice. A plan commission is required by statute. So the town board couldn't just say, forget it, we don't need a plan commission. But my main point was that the plan commission's job is to sort through the hard stuff with respect to developments, at least. And in your town, in most every municipality I work, the board provides a lot of deference to the town plan commission because it has gotten its fingernails dirty and understands proposals to a much greater extent than the remainder of the board that's not on the plan commission. So that's not unusual, and as a result, you with rare occasion, you and most other municipalities don't see the town board acting differently than the plan commission has recommended on any particular item.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. So kind of rumbling through page 22 now. I don't know, I'm trying to find where you are, Kim, sorry. So yeah, not too much on page 22. Just extending onto page 23. Again, it's an attempt to kind of define a little bit what a change of land use is that it's all these things that are being covered by this whole ordinance. But there's certainly different procedures that you have to follow depending on whether one of those things is a plat or a CSM or some other action that is being requested. So this tries to lay out the process in generic terms with reference to the fact that you're gonna have to look deeper in the ordinance for specific processes for things like CSMs and plats.
Mark, in 2A, there where you're talking about a change of land use, should we be a little clearer that they first have to apply at the county and then they apply at the town?
Sure, yep.
And then in 2E, where if the required actions are not completed with the time allotted, the petition and approval will be rendered null and void instead of maybe?
That's interesting, Chris, because under statutes, certainly chapter 236 of state statute, it actually says the opposite. That if you don't take action within 90 days on a preliminary plat, for instance, it's considered approved as presented. So that's why I was hesitant. I understand your point exactly, but we could say shall be unless otherwise prescribed by state law or something like that, and that would maybe be a better way to put it.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm writing that down now.
I would be good with that.
Yeah. Okay. Some cleanup language and plat and CSM submittals. It specifies a number of copies. Kim could still require 12 copies, but we're moving some of us quicker than others into a more digital world, and so these kind of changes would allow that to be codified.
Yeah, I like paper.
Yeah, I understand. And so this doesn't say Kim can't still require 12 copies. It just says, if half of you don't want a copy, why should she make someone price paper? Yeah.
Kim,
So
Kim,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
we don't have the plan commission approve a CSM.
Well, I mean, no, not the final one. The CSM is usually the tool that they use for land division for 4 lots or less. And so you are seeing that in its earliest form, but then by the time the final CSM is ready to be approved, it's already gone through you and the board and the county and come back.
Right.
So generally, the final approval goes back to the
To
town
the
board
board.
and the CSM.
Yeah, I see that on the bottom of page 23. It's the current ordinance says approved by the plan commission. It should say recommended by the plan commission and approved by the town board.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
These copies, I thought it was in here, but does it also require an electronic copy?
Yeah, I have written PDF, Kim, but we could just say digital copy as directed by the clerk.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that that's in there because that's getting to be pretty important.
Yeah. Yeah, I said PDF, but I'll just say digital copy in a format directed by, and in most cases, that's going to be PDF.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I got that note down. I'm kind of rumbling through page 24. Don't really have too much to say about that. 25 is more of this attempt to consolidate the current comprehensive development plan process with the current concept plan review process. So the idea being is before, like Mr. Williamson, before submitting a preliminary plat, they sketch out something. Should be in accordance with, what we're reading here to get your initial feedback before investing, as it says, substantial time and money for a plat.
Mark, in B2, line 3, along with any CD, it should be CDP, right?
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Good.
I read it.
The CDP later.
I can answer any questions about this, but this was an attempt to sort out and in certain cases to consolidate information under this comprehensive development plan heading on pages 25 and 26. And then you can see, there's a fair amount of cross out that goes on along with that on page 27.
Mm-hmm. That really gets into the developer's agreement.
Yeah, which really isn't a CDP sort of thing. It's where, when you get to the platting is when you talk about development agreement in reality. 28, I'm rumbling through, but you stop me when you need to. I don't, not great substance on most of these chapters. Just me looking at every word and trying to clean things up the best I could. And then 15.06, I'm sorry, it jumped. I'm jumping now to page 30, Kim. We were just talking about procedures for comprehensive development plan. This section now says, well, what is it and what do I have to put on a comprehensive development plan for it to be complete? And so, this 1506.2 is that laundry list with several of these things moved from other parts of the current ordinance and others added at my suggestion. But again, it's really up to you ultimately.
Yeah, that was good.
31 and 32 are lists of what you need to submit with a preliminary plat. I'm reminded that I think your town engineer put together a checklist for preliminary plats a couple of years ago. He mentioned that to me. And we'll just want to reconcile that checklist with this list that extends all the way to the top of page 33. Because again, if something's on a checklist and the ordinance says something different, then it's illegal. You know, if push came to shove, someone could say, I'm not doing what's on the checklist. I just have to do what's in the ordinance.
Right.
So I have a note to the right to try to reconcile that, and I can do that with Nick, the town engineer, in the next few weeks. So then 1508 is the old section for comprehensive development plan extending from page 33 to the top of page 34. That goes away because we've covered all that stuff earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Then we start to get on page 35 into the streets things. Remember, I introduced that earlier with the neighborhood connectors, but we didn't really have standards. I had a couple of preliminary comments on how the ordinance reads, but the main guts of it starts on the top of page 36. So it describes this new concept of neighborhood connector streets, arranged to provide ready and safe collection and movement of motor vehicle, bicycle, and pedestrian traffic from local streets within the subdivision to other bigger streets. And then if you keep reading beyond this section onto page 30, well, I guess 36, not much change, 37, you see that we have a new right-of-way standard for these neighborhood connector streets of 70 feet in width. And then you're going to see a little later a reference to an exhibit, a set of exhibits. And I don't want to take us there right now, but we can go there after this whole ordinance. The exhibits show the recommended design standards that the town engineer is proposing to operationalize or give developers the requirements for how those streets get laid out within that 70-foot right of way. I promised it would get faster, and it's going to start to, because most of the standards, design standards for subdivisions don't change in this proposal. How lots get laid out, how big they are, blocks, arrangements, things like that are largely unchanged. And that extends, you know, seeing where you are, Kim, that if we got keep 42, 43, you can go through 44 had this kind of orphaned section on waiving standards. This is the thing that I moved up way to the beginning when I was talking about who can waive standards and saying that it probably ought to be the town board. This was the section that got moved and altered in that process. Seems sort of lost amongst all these other things. Moving on, the reference to where you look to see what a neighborhood connector street looks like or ought to be is on page 48. And that points to the exhibits that I think were also in your packet. And I don't know that there's anything else one more thing I'll present is on 52. There's an interesting section on siting standards, it's currently called. I thought it might make sense to just talk more broadly about comprehensive plan standards when you're looking at new development and new subdivisions in particular. Some of them fit under the heading siting named siting very easily. Others are not really siting standards. So I didn't want you to get boxed into only being able to enforce things that fit under the definition of siting. That is in fact all I have to share. And then there is the appendices. We have the petition for change of land use. I'm going to suggest that we make it clear that the appendices are not part of the ordinance. Because then if they're part of the ordinance, then the town
Can't change it.
Plan Commission has to recommend, we have to have a public hearing, the town board has to approve every time you want to change a word in that petition. So I'd like to make it clear that, we could say, all changes have to go through the Plan Commission or something like that, but to have to go through that whole formal process to change that seems unnecessarily burdensome.
Right. So Mark, can you go back to page 38? I think I have a typo for you.
Very good.
In C1, the very last line where it's talking about pedestrian ways.
Hold on, Chris, I'm almost there, sorry. C1, you said. Yes, I see it. Oh, it's 10%, yeah. Instead of ampersand.
Fine. Yeah.
Right,
I got one.
got it. Thank you.
Mark, going back to page 12 on your definitions, I thought you were going to comment on this and you didn't. The definition for RDU, do you want to make them consistent?
Yeah, so we use the term RDU in the comprehensive plan as residential development. Now I want to make sure it's right. Is it residential density or development? Yeah, it's residential density unit. So, and it means something completely different than the words that you see on the page. So I didn't want to get those two acronyms mixed up with one another.
Should it just be dwelling unit then?
Well,
Sure. Yeah, that could be, it could be changed. The only, yeah. And now you're affecting my Germanic desire for order. You get out of alphabetical order if you take out the word residential, but I can get over that.
Good.
Or
Okay.
just change it because I got the whole chapter cross-referenced. If you move stuff, it'll all realign.
Oh, okay. So you don't mind moving that up then,
Oh, I don't
We're
know.
going to remove the word residential.
right?
Yeah.
So the dwelling unit.
Yeah, the challenge, and Kim, you hit on my concern, is if that is no longer number 26, but moves up to become 12 because it's a D and not an R, then everything below it changes order. And that's when I get scared that references don't get updated.
I've got it all cross-referenced and I'll make sure that it's okay when we're all said and done with it. I'll go through all those again, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and on that note, Kim, we could, instead of my approach to just put repealed, we could just delete those things that are actually repealed, and you won't look at the ordinance in the future and see section 27 repeal. What the hell are they doing? Why did they do that? We could just get rid of those if you're confident that we can, make sure that other references to those sections are all corrected.
Yeah, if there's exterior references, we'll have to look for those external references, but within this, that's pretty easy for me to clean up.
Okay.
Question?
Do you want to look at those streets then? Those sections,
It was in our packet.
okay.
Yeah, those are the cross sections that the town engineer has put together. I don't think there was much change in the local street cross section from what is currently in the appendix, but the change that is most noteworthy is the one, figure 2 actually, I think it is, which is the neighborhood connector. So this is the 70-foot wide new one with the curb
Right.
lane. Yeah,
On each side, 10-foot paved. Well, it's all paved. Yeah,
the bike lane would be paved, that would be paved. I think the intent was that you would stripe
Yeah.
on the side edge of the bike lane.
right. On both sides of the bike lane.
Correct. So, we'd certainly welcome any comments on this, but this was his effort to provide a standard for this.
The road, so I'm good with it.
So we're okay with the two being 12 feet and the,
What?
for the 12 foot versus a 10 foot for the traffic lane?
12-foot paved for the driving lane on the minor collector. Yep.
Yeah, the theory, I guess, with the narrower, Dave, if you're getting at this, is that in figure 2 is that drivers would still have that kind of added comfort of not feeling that they're going to drive off the road if they're not precisely within the 10 foot versus the 12. So that's the rationale for making those two driving lanes 10 feet as opposed to the two 12-foot driving lanes you see on figure 1, where if you drive off the 12 foot, you're in the gravel.
Still got the bike lane to use if we need to.
Right.
So this was discussing consider, and I would assume you'd want to recommend that town board approve it and send it to the attorney for final tweaking,
Review.
review.
Yeah, if you wanted to, if you feel comfortable that your job is done, here tonight with the add-ons, you could make a recommendation right now. And then the next step we would want to do is obviously make these tweaks that you advised and then have the town attorney review it before the town board did.
Yeah,
Do we have to have a public hearing on this one?
yeah.
Yes, but under statute, it's kind of strange. The public hearing is before the town board instead of the plan commission.
Okay,
Cool.
Yeah.
all right.
You want to recommend it?
Did you make a motion to do that?
No, you'll do it and I'll second.
Okay, I move that we move the proposed chapter 15 up to the attorney for his
Review.
Perusal.
review. That'd be a good word.
Perusal.
Yeah,
With the changes that were
Changes that we
discussed tonight.
made
Yes.
correct.
and then send it to the
In
town
its
board.
current form.
Amended form.
And I heard someone say that, and then after that attorney review, is it also your recommendation that it just goes straight to the town board after the attorney?
I'll take that as a,
Friendly amendment.
Motion by Anders, second by Mule.
Yep.
To recommend chapter 15 changes that were mentioned tonight be made, send it to the attorney for his review. With his review, it goes to the town board for action, public hearing.
So, and then will you want, I guess you'll have to decide that if you want the town board to review it or have a hearing first, you know?
Have a public hearing first.
Yeah.
Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
excellent work, Mark.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for letting me stay out of the cold tonight.
Now, the next one you have to work on is for the,
Design review.
yes.
It's on my to-do list.
All right, get to it. You know it, right? Does anybody want to
Sure,
do
yes.
6?
I'll second David's motion.
Motion by Mule, second by Anders for adjournment. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Have a
Opposed?
good night, Mark.
Motion carried. Thank you.